It's 8:15 Eastern Time, the only time zone that has their Week 1 lineup set already, and that means it's time for C2C Live. That's Matt Bruening. I'm Austin Nace, the Spectacle Bros here this evening for those watching on the YouTube channel. On a highly anticipated version of tonight's show, the players that we are most excited to watch this season. We catch you guys up on everything that you need to know from Week 0. It's really not that much. And we talk a few big unranked matchups that we're actually going to be watching this week. But first, Jerome Miles, 5-star, borderline 5-star. I don't know where you're looking to pull this stuff. What?
No. Right after the stinger, this is C2C Live.
I forgot the stinger. So we're just going to, we're doing it live, Matthew. We do it live every single night.
Throwing me off. Anyways, Jerome Miles. Yeah, let's talk.
I didn't have a note in here, and that's what threw me off. I had no note in the show sheet. Jerome Miles. Torn ACL. Oh no, we don't know. We don't know what the injury is. We don't know what the injury is. I don't know why I'm saying torn ACL. We tore his ACL last year. Some sort of unspecified lower leg. See, Colin. Listening.
I'm with you, Colin. I feel like I need to take a shower right now. Like it's weird.
Right after the stinger. I'm a man of the people. You guys bullied me into that, but it's fine.
I feel so much better right now.
I don't even remember what I was talking about now.
We were teasing Jerome Miles, and we were really about to get into it. And then you hit everybody with the quick judo chop to the neck. Nobody was expecting it.
That's how I get you. Jerome Miles, unspecified lower body injury. Feels like it's a hockey report. Out for the season. Matt, what are we doing with Jerome Miles now? He's had 3 significant injuries 3 years in a row. I mean, is the dream dead for us?
Man, I almost don't see how it's not. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. When they said that he had the injury, they've already clarified he's out for the season, right? It's not like he's out right now. It's a whole. I mean, so I heard you. I believe you mentioned this on Campus Life this week. Just whoever's advising these kids, sometimes I don't know why. I know we've kind of like joked about this. Maybe we should be more serious about like starting some kind of consulting firm to help people, because like whoever consulted him to go back and run track for whatever reason, like if we were talking about Nick Harbor from a couple years ago, I get it. Even though I don't know he would have actually made the Olympic team, like there was thoughts maybe he could do it. Cool, man. I kind of get it. Being in the Olympics, wearing the flag on your chest, I get that. What were you gonna do for your high school team, Jerome Miles? Like this really sucks for him. Now, like realistically, if we're talking about just his future in general, sure. For us, the year 1 0 theory that you and Chris have really kind of put a lot of work into is showing that like this just is not good news for him. Now he could, right, with what is it, like the 2% chance to become an outlier, become a player that produces on the NFL side of things. From a realistic standpoint, this does not kill him entirely on a way of like, sure, he could still become a college asset and produce and possibly get drafted down the line. But chances of him becoming like that kind of player we thought he was going to be. I mean, I had him as one of my top wide receivers in that class. The only thing at the time that was holding him back was the injury. And now he's gone out there and done it again. I mean, I hate to see it because he was one of my favorite players in that class. Like I was really, really excited to see what he was going to do, whether it was, I believe it was at USC one point before whatever was flipping or just ending up going to Texas A&M. Like I really love Jerome Miles. I drafted him in a couple places, even though, we talked a lot about that over the offseason, right? Like when's too high to draft him? How far do you let him go because of the concerns? And we're like, well, I know you were actually on the other side of this. We were both kind of on opposite sides of the fence, right? On the one side, you're like, I think this is a really bad idea that he's running track. And I was like, well, maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it's, he's healthy. He's kind of gone through all the physical therapy. Everything's good to go. And now he's going to be healthy. I don't know if that's what helped. I don't know if we'll ever find out, but like for him, I think it really sucks just to know that he's now going to miss his entire freshman season after missing pretty much his entire season the year before because of the injury. I don't see how he bounces back and ends up being like considered one of the top prospects in his class again, especially again with it being a lower leg injury, whether it's specific to his knee or not. I don't think that matters at this point.
Yeah, and for the record, I guess we should, acknowledge because there is some, speculation that the two of us are doing here. They've not said that it's related at all to the prior
Yeah.
injury. And we obviously, again, like because they haven't given a specific injury, we don't know if it's the same injury over again or something like that. But it is really hard to separate the fact that this was the order of events, that he tore his ACL late last August, that he kind of rushed back and ran high school track, as you mentioned, this past year, did not enroll early, did not, came onto campus here during the summer, and then is now out for the season with another lower leg injury. Like it is hard for me to believe that there is not some sort of connection between those three events, especially because, as we've seen, guys that rush back from those ACL injuries, it's not always the knee that you re-injure. It is because maybe you're compensating elsewhere in the, what is it, like the muscular or whatever chain or whatever, that creates some sort of injury for you. So even if they're being overly cautious, I do think it's a bad thing that he's basically missing 2.5 years of like the key football development back to back to back. Because that's part of what the year 1 0 theory is. And for anybody that's listening that isn't familiar, I think most of our listeners probably are, but it's just a very simple theory that we have, that there are very basic production thresholds that top freshman recruits have to hit once they get to college. And if they can't, even in the most crowded wide receiver rooms, it signals that they probably aren't going to be cut out for the NFL. Now, I think we did have an interesting discussion on that the other day, and how, we don't discount for injury. And we were saying, the injury, it's related, but it's not, because, whether they're still missing out on the year of development. Maybe he was good enough, and maybe if he was healthy this year, he would have had 40 catches for 600 yards and a couple of touchdowns. And, obviously we'll never know, but missing out in that year of development is just really, really big. Not even practice reps, not even any of that stuff for a guy that, 95th percentile athlete in our database, a 10.3 600, a 20.84 200. Like, those are the things that obviously he was coming back to run track for, because those are good times. But I think, and you're right, Matt, like we were on different sides of it. And I think if he hadn't rushed back, I could have been, I don't want to say like suckered, but I think I could have been convinced to take him in a league or two this year. And I don't know, I think it was Longstreet that we were talking about a week ago or 2 weeks ago, where I was saying, like, just the nature of where I was drafting in a lot of drafts, I didn't end up with a lot of Longstreet. And Miles was very similar as well. He was kind of going in the ranges where I just wasn't picking a lot of. So I don't have any Miles, but I was actively avoiding him anyway for this very reason. So it's a bummer. And you don't want to say like, this is a lesson to be learned for other recruits, but it kind of is, especially for a guy that's a borderline 5-star, that you think, you can make an assumption that there is some sort of serious NFL future there at some point. Like, I don't know how much money he potentially cost himself, because again, we don't know for sure that these are connected, but it's hard to look at those three events and say that they're not. And that could be, a multi-million dollar mistake. So you have to feel bad for Miles and for everybody around him. And, obviously I'm sure the people that advised him to do that probably don't feel super great about it right now. And, all of that kind of stuff. So it is a bummer. It does really thin out Texas A&M's wide receiver room. Not that I want to do a breakdown on their wide receiver room. It's funny, in April, we were talking, this room all of a sudden was Kevin Concepcion, Micah Hudson, Drew Miles, Mario Craver, and Hudson went back to A&M or to Texas Tech, and Miles is now out for the year. And all of a sudden, this room that was supposedly got a lot deeper. I still think it's probably stronger than last year, but it's all of a sudden it's Craver and Concepcion, and I don't know that with Marcel Reed, I don't know that he's going to make any of those receivers better. So that's a tough passing situation to go into the year on. A couple of days before they're about to kick off. They have a pretty soft schedule overall. There's some tough games in there. They're in the SEC, obviously, and they play Notre Dame in the non-con. So I'm not saying it's a cakewalk schedule, but that could mean some trouble for them, especially if those running backs aren't fully healthy to start the year as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, at the end of the day, I think despite how deep that wide receiver room, the real issue there was going to be Marcel Reed anyways. I don't know that. Losing Micah Hudson, who also was a player that we loved coming out of high school, I believe was a 5-star, if I'm remembering correctly. At least when, Texas Tech got him. and then bringing in a guy like Jerome Miles to him, and you had a chance for this to be a transcendent room from what I can remember. I mean, who's the last best wide receiver Texas A&M has had? Is it
Mike
all the way
Evans.
back to Mike Evans? Is that
Probably.
where they go all the way back to? So I mean, yeah, would have been a very, very interesting room. And obviously in just a couple, but really just over the summer, everything has changed for them.
Yep. Things change quickly in college football. We're going to talk week 0 recap, guys. Before we do that real quick, if you're watching the show here, why don't you drop a like here on the YouTube channel? And if you're not subscribed to the Campus Canton YouTube channel already, I think you should fix that and do that right now. And if you're listening to this on podcast, again, if you guys can leave us a 5-star rate and review, let us know what you like about the show. We would greatly appreciate that. Home Field Apparel, guys, as the season's rolling around. I know I think it's like their 7th birthday or something today, or it was very recently, and they dropped a bunch of new stuff. I've got a gift card burning a hole in my pocket, so I'm going to be looking through. But while you're over there, use our promo code Campus 2 Canton, get you 15% off. And then head on over to campus2canton.com, guys. Sign up over there before the season kicks off. We've got a ton of tools and data and rankings and all sorts of different stuff every single week that can, I think, help you in your CFF, C2C, Devi, whatever kind of college formats you like. We can help you with that. And related, if you're already here on the YouTube channel, we do a 2-hour kickoff show like they do at the big noon kickoff or any of that kind of stuff every Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern, right up until kickoff. That'll start this week here on the YouTube channel. A collection of us will be on every single week. So set your alarm for that. Talking, betting lines for the day, player props, our top rankings for the week, all that kind of stuff, some storylines, all that good stuff. So I think that's all the housekeeping. I think can officially check that off the list, done and dusted. And we can recap week 0, Matt.
Yeah.
Let's start with Farmageddon. We don't need to get into the whole fact that neither of the schools actually want this to be called Farmageddon, which I don't understand. I think it's really funny. Like, it's a cool nickname.
Yeah,
but,
I agree. I mean, what's wrong with the nickname? It stands out. It's there's nothing else that's anything like that, is there, that I can think of rivalry names wise? So yeah, I don't know.
Don't they know
maybe
how much
Iowa
we could sell? Like, come on.
Oh yeah. Well, I guess they don't care about that. But
not.
I like it. I love it. It's just like no, there isn't.
Isn't Iowa State the school that's like $13 million in the hole in the athletic department?
Oh,
you can sell so many shirts you can cut into that $13 million with some Farmageddon shirts. I'm positive that would happen.
I agree.
I think it's Iowa. It's either Iowa or Iowa State. I think it's Iowa State.
Yeah, they're practically the same school. It doesn't matter.
I didn't say that. Whoever's listening to this that's a fan of either, go get Matt.
Either school.
He lives down in Texas. Just go door to door until you find him.
I do. We don't know any better. We're like our own country down here. I just assume y'all were the same school.
Dylan Edwards left the game this weekend. That Kansas State Iowa State game that was over in Ireland, left the game pretty much immediately. Was back to return the opening punt because Iowa State got the ball first and muffed it. And looked real innocuous. Like, didn't look like they just fell over and landed on his butt. But they're saying it's an ankle injury. He has now been ruled out for this week's matchup against, I think it's North Dakota. It's one of the Dakotas. And then I think they have a week 2 bye. And then they're saying that he's doubtful for that next week against Army as well. So basically going to miss 3 weeks. In his absence, Joe Jackson stepped in, was not great, but it was a downpour for a lot of that game. And I think both of those defenses are pretty decent. So willing to give him a mulligan on that. Is Kansas State going to miss Dylan Edwards pretty badly over the next couple of weeks, potentially?
I mean, I think just from the aspect of what an explosive playmaker he can be, I think so. I don't think that Joe is quite, I honestly don't know like what his athletic comparisons are. I imagine Dylan Edwards is upwards of 90%. I could be wrong. I just remember, I was
eyes grade might bring him down. Let's see. Oh, he's 97th percentile.
Yeah, but that it's because of that speed and that burst is one of the reasons I loved him as little as he was. Me and those little running backs.
Sucker for those little guys.
I am phrasing. I definitely I think that they will. Obviously it's not the same offensive coordinator. Klein It's Klein, right? I always get those two mixed up. Kleinman is the head coach. Klein is the one that left to Texas A&M. I always mix those two up for some reason.
I believe you're correct there. Yeah.
Obviously, he was the one who did all that stuff with the smaller running backs at the time. Kansas State, specifically Deuce Vaughn, the one that everybody kind of loves from a CFF perspective and what he was able to do. So we had, if you just kind of round peg, square hole, or square whatever it is, you may think that, Dylan Edwards is going to be able to do the same thing. But again, I think just from an explosive playmaking aspect, I think they are going to miss him. I mean, Avery Johnson was, I don't know. I went back and watched that game on Monday. I don't think he was as bad as everybody was making him out to be. I don't think he was great. I think he was what he's been. Like, I don't think that Avery Johnson was horrible. I think Mox actually tweeted out on X the other day. He's just like, he just hasn't improved on anything, which I think is a fair way to put it. Like, he's just not, we had kind of hoped, and I know Felix had kind of talked a lot last year. You thought Avery Johnson was improving in certain areas and becoming like this really good passer. Like, I thought he looked like the same player. So I don't think he was that bad, but I think without having him step up and not having kind of like that outlet explosive weapon you can kind of use to exploit weaknesses in a defense and a guy like Dylan Edwards, I do think that they will end up missing him.
Yeah, the only other somewhat dynamic offensive weapon that they have is Jace Brown.
Yeah.
And I do think that's potentially a problem. I'm not sure that their matchups either the next 2 weeks are necessarily teams that can punish them. I know the Dakotas are tricky, but
yeah,
I think just like in terms of trench play and all that kind of stuff, I think Kansas State will be fine enough if they have to grind out a victory in that game. And then Army, obviously the Service Academies had a pretty good year last year, but again, in a game that you would expect them, even without Dylan Edwards, to kind of be able to grind out if they had to, and pull that out. So
they don't have a bye actually.
Oh, they don't really play week 2, or is it Army week 2?
No, they played. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, North Dakota, and then it is Army. Then they get Arizona. Then they get their bye before they play UCF. So they got
interesting. Pete Thamel tweeted it today, that's not what he implied. Yeah. So interesting. Okay, yeah, because he said week 3 against Army. So it must have been like their third.
Well, that's probably what he meant, because of the week 0. But yeah, their bye comes after Arizona, which was what I was going to say. I mean, that's probably the first game I would think that if I know you said that like they're possibly expecting Edwards to be back, but then if he's not, I think that might be a team that could hurt them. I don't think Arizona's going to be that good, but that would be one that I think could be interesting.
I'll one up you. I think Arizona's going to be terrible.
Yeah, I've already pissed off Iowa and Kansas State fan, or Iowa State and Kansas State. There we go again. I'm just grouping Iowas together. I was trying to, keep the state of Arizona my favorite because I do love the Sun Devils. Sam Levitt, Kenny Dillingham.
And we're going to talk about them a little bit later.
Ooh, we are? I did not know that.
We're going to talk about players we're excited to watch, and I have a Arizona State player. That's not one that people would think. So, teaser. Now you got to hang around till the end.
I just saw. Good one.
Yeah. I do like. I don't have a lot of thoughts on Dylan Edwards. I do think it's concerning that you always are worried about these little guys getting injured, and instantly he got injured. Some of these little guys, I think it's more in college you can get away with a little bit, but I do think it's more it's we get some real confirmation bias in our heads with some of these guys, specifically because of it's Kansas State and Deuce Vaughn was there before, and we get kind of they can do it again, or little guys can succeed, but really, I mean the denominator is still really big here, and the numerator is still really, really small. So it's not a guarantee. I do think that if Jackson's decent, it kind of forces him into a committee. So I think if you've got Dylan Edwards and like you in a CFF or C2C league, I am panicking a little bit right now. I'm probably seeing if I can sell. I don't know. I mean, I'm not selling them for pennies on the dollar, but
I was going to say, I don't think that you can at this point. I roster him in 2 places, and I think at this point I'm just holding him. I don't think that you'll be able to get anything worthy of it, I guess.
If I could get 80% of what his price was a week ago, I'd probably take it. Whatever that was. So who knows? So, yeah. And I do just also want to say, like, I don't want to pass judgment on Avery Johnson because of the playing conditions last week. I thought he was noticeably not very good. And actually he was really underwhelming as a runner to me, but I think a lot of it was the footing on that field.
Yeah.
And I think the passes, he's already not a great passer, slick ball. He has kind of that weird pushing, throwing motion anyway. Like, I don't know if his hands are big enough to get around the ball. So that could have been messing with him a little bit. So I don't want to pass too much judgment and say like, well, he hasn't improved at all. But I think people know my stance that I don't think that he can improve to that level. But I don't want to take last week's game and be like, yep, I was right. As fun as that would be, I'm not Felix. I don't just, jump into pat myself on the back at the first sign of, something positive. So, I think those are my comments there. On the other side of the ball, in this game, just real quick, the wide receiver rotation was not what any of us were expecting at all. Raise your hand if you are not an Iowa State fan and you have heard of, before last week, Dominic Overby, Brett Eskildson, or quite frankly, any of the tight ends that were getting some serious run, like Gabe Burkle. You knew them, Matthew, before last week?
I did, only because for the past 3 years, I've been studying very hard randomly named people for when Alan True jumps on the show and Felix quizzes me names. That's the only reason I know who those people are.
Thousands of players memorized.
The Rolodex. I don't keep much up here, but that's what I've been keeping. One of these days. I've gotten Alan once. No, I never beat him, but I got one player correct, actually, I believe.
I don't even want to know the information that you're having to forget to remember this stuff. But
birthdays, children's names, I just say, hey, you. It's all kinds of bad stuff,
Worth it.
It is. It's definitely worth it. One of these days it'll be worth it. I've yet to beat Alan, but what day that it comes.
Eventually.
Glorious day. Confetti, fireworks set up behind me. I'm telling you, the whole works.
Just pull a thing of banner drops. Yeah, the whole 9 yards. Yeah. So I do think it just is. It might spell some doom for the Chase Sal and Xavier Townsend people out there. So it's just something to be keeping an eye on. Because I don't think we think of either of those guys as really high end NFL assets. So if you're playing like a campus to Canton league, I know, we've drifted a little further or away from talking, a ton of C2C stuff on the show in terms of like everything through that lens. But talking through that lens right now, I think if you've got those guys, I'd probably be selling. I'd probably be trying to sell. I've seen some decent trades go through this week. You can still get a decent amount for Sal. So I would do that.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know that you'd be able to get much for Townsend. I mean, I remember when I wrote him up as a running back going to UCF, and it was more just because of like his speed, his burst, his ability to catch the ball as a running back. Obviously transitioning to a wide receiver, I don't know that you'd be able to get much for him. I would say I wouldn't panic too much yet. We've seen this before too. The only one I can think of that like it's completely different players. I say the only time we've ever seen something like this, I guess, would it have been Evan Stewart last year, where it was like really hyped up about a player going to this new place and then just like completely not becoming part of the offense at all. That's the main one that I can think of.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good example. We get a bunch of them every year. I think that we think, oh, look, shiny new toy syndrome, even for like not freshmen. Because
who was because he ended up, I think he had the not eligibility issue, maybe it was eligibility. He went to North Carolina, and for the life of me, I cannot remember what his name is right
Walker.
Now. Yeah, Walker was another one that I think about it. He transferred up. We were all excited about it, but again, he had that. I don't remember if it was the eligibility or couldn't get the whatever to be able to play for a little bit. Okay. And then he ended up getting hurt, I think like 2 games after he started. So yeah, I mean, I like I said, I would not panic too much on Sal yet, unless you just really think this is what it's going to be. Then yeah, I would say I agree with you also. Like you might want to just get rid of him as quick as you can.
I mean, I think if you're holding Chase Sal, what's your hope for him? Like, I don't think that anyone's like he's going to be drafted in the second round. Like, Higgins was last year or anything like that. I think you kind of had to have been treating him as a guy that was only really going to be a college producer if you're playing in a C2C league, and any NFL draft stuff you might have gotten in the future was just purely bonus. At least if you weren't treating him that way, I think you probably were overvaluing him. So if that's the best case, I don't mind selling him now. I mean, for shifting him on for something else. So just my 2 cents on that. Other games, Hawaii beat Stanford. And I don't know if the rare Hawaii game that's not on at 1 a.m. kickoff or whatever. So I watched the whole thing, or pretty much the whole thing. I thought it was a really exciting game. They're obviously then pulling that out at the end and beating Stanford. I mean, I think really the only holding Hawaii offensive pieces, I think you're probably not feeling very good today. I mean, I actually don't think I would be starting any Hawaii wide receivers until I see, because I haven't seen any injury news actually come in. Like they say, he broke his foot or he, whatever. I haven't seen anything. So.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, what was it? I forgot who it was. Was it Senecal that you guys were talking about more recently? Where it was like, if you really want to get a Hawaii guy, maybe go with the guy who's getting drafted the latest of the group.
Jackson Harris was the guy that we were talking about, and he ended up having a pretty decent game.
Yeah, it was like I know he had a touchdown. He had I remember over 50 yards. So yeah, it was. I agree with you.
Yeah. So and Stanford is going to be awful this year. Sorry, Stanford fans. Worst Power 4 team in a while, possibly.
I know you dropped this in our Slack channel. Like, how bad does Elijah Brown have to be for them to not get off Bengal Branson, and how horrible he looked in that game?
Well, the crazy thing is, I think it sounds like he's not even the 2.
Oh God, I didn't know
allegedly
that.
With the way I saw some Stanford fans talking on social media this week, like it wasn't like they were like oh, let's just bench Branson and see what we have in Elijah Brown. Like they were talking about, and I'm trying to remember who they were mentioning as their backup. I'm trying to pull up their depth chart on CFB Depth, which if you're not checking out cfbdepth.com for depth chart stuff, you definitely should be. I think they are the best free resource out there by far. It's taking a second to load here, so I'll look that up. But they weren't even mentioning him. So like, if he's the 3rd guy there, I mean, he wasn't brought in by the staff or anything. But like, it's not like they're obviously like they're like, we want the quarterback to run a ton, like all this stuff that he can't do. Like it's a pocket passing, pro style ish type offense. They want to establish the run and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's not a good sign. For a guy like him. People were talking about Dylan Rizek as being potentially the next guy.
Yikes. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, because I don't remember Brown looking that bad last year in the times that he came. I mean, I don't believe he ever started a game for Stanford, if I remember correctly, but he definitely came in multiple times in games and played. Now, again, I get it. New coaching staff, Andrew Luck's in now is kind of like, I believe he's quote unquote the general manager or something like that to the football program, kind of doing all that stuff. I mean, this kid, again, he was a 4-star. I know we were lower on him than the services, but I remember writing up his profile for the freshman guide. And I thought like overall could be at least a semi intriguing player. A lot of it had to do with the offense we thought Stanford was going to be running. Obviously, again, I don't remember what his name is, but they moved on from the guy from Sacramento State after last season as the head coach and brought in. Yeah. So, and that was part of the reason why I thought Elijah Brown would be somewhat successful there. So like, just to see him kind of get like that quickly, I'd be very curious. I don't know why he wouldn't have transferred out at this point, because I think he could start for a lot of other, I mean, not like, we're not talking about one of the top end guys, but he could probably start at most G5 schools, probably some lower end P4 schools, better than even Stanford. So just interesting that again, they're going with Bengal Branson of all, and how bad he looked, and that they just kept rolling with him.
Yeah, and I guess the poopy part is they don't have a freshman this year that they could kick it to just see what they have. They had Bear Bachmeier, and he left the spring, potentially because he saw this and was like, I don't want to be associated with that. Which, I mean, I don't blame him. If this is a dumpster fire, he's in a much better situation. He's starting week 1 for BYU. But like without that, they don't have a freshman this year. So it's not even like, it's not even like you can say like, oh, well, just see what this guy's got. And if they don't believe in Brown, then I don't know what direction they're going to go. I think as soon as we saw the Bengal Branson stuff, they named him a starter. We were all like, this is going to be bad, because he was terrible at Oregon State, more or less. You can talk about experience. Experience only matters if it's like positive experience to a certain extent, once you have a decent amount of it. And none of his is good. Like it wasn't like, the worst quarterback in college football, but it's not positive. So I don't know what Stanford's going to be doing this year, but I think they're going to be, they're over. I know their win total was at 3.5, and I think they had to have won this game to like even have that the over in play. So I think they're going to be squarely under, and it's just going to be a matter of how far under now. It's not great.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I'll be curious to see if we actually see if they decide to move on from Branson and they don't give Brown a chance. I think it's Miles. Is it Miles Jackson? Is he still there? He
Miles
was the guy
Jackson's still there. Dylan Rizek and Charlie Myrer are the other three quarterbacks. I don't even know who Charlie Myrer
That's
is.
what I'm saying. I'm not going to pretend like I know who that is either. But I do remember Miles Jackson. I wrote his profile up as well a couple of years ago. He was a guy that I also didn't like, but was like at least had interesting tools. I thought would be, an interesting like sleeper possibly to do something. So
based on last week's game, Matt, and then we're going to move on to the next game here. Let's keep this brief. Which of these games sound like wins for Stanford now, having seen them in week one? And obviously, teams can improve as the year goes on, but they have a bye this week. Then BYU.
No.
Boston College.
No.
Virginia.
I'd say no, but that's a toss-up. Would they even be favored against Virginia?
It's at Virginia, so probably not.
Yeah, okay.
San Jose State?
Sure.
We can be generous, give them that one. SMU, at SMU?
No.
Florida State?
I mean, I'm going to say no, but come on, folks, it's Florida State. But I'm going to say no.
Miami?
No.
Pitt?
No.
UNC?
No.
Cal?
No. I like Cal.
Probably not, but that's at least one that you think,
could be, yeah. So if we give it to them, sure, yeah.
And Notre Dame?
No, so 2 wins. Go Trees.
Interesting. Not great.
Yeah.
Kansas beat Fresno State. I don't think there's a lot to talk about here. I did just want to ask you, Matt, Jalen Daniels looked kind of like Jalen Daniels is supposed to look. And I think, there was a little bit of concern because he was injured in spring, and I think he had another surgery and a bunch of it. So there was some room for healthy skepticism. If he's healthy this year, how good is Kansas realistically?
I mean, I think that's the thing is he's going to actually have to stay healthy, which I believe, didn't he get injured in this game at one point? So I don't know if he, not for the whole game, but at one point he got, I believe it was a shoulder, if I'm remembering correctly. Yes, he got, it was holding his shoulder. I mean, I think they have a chance to win the Big 12. I think that they're right up in there if Daniel stays healthy. I think that's been the biggest problem. Can I be honest with you? My biggest takeaway from this was Mikey Keene should not have left Fresno State. Maybe this team would have been somewhat decent. Why he left to go to Michigan is beyond me.
I can tell you right now.
Well,
I'm making the money symbol for people listening on podcast. So, or the money motion.
I did not realize, by the way, that Rayshawn Luke was on Fresno.
He's on Fresno?
Yeah. I forgot all about that guy.
Yeah. And then the last one, Western Kentucky firing on all cylinders as a passing attack. Is Maverick McIver, I wrote down on the sheet here the next Bailey Zappi, but realistically the kind of guy that can throw for a ton of yards and be potentially the fantasy QB1 this year.
100%. I mean, he threw for over 50 passes, had over 400 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. And if you watch that game, there was multiple big plays. The receivers just dropped the ball. So I think this could have been a whole lot worse. And look, I get it was only against Sam Houston, but myself included, were some people who were talking about Sam Houston might not be a sleeper to make the playoff, but a sleeper to possibly compete in that conference. And for Western Kentucky to go out there and dominate them the way that they did, I do not think that the final score is indicative at all at how the game looked. I think Western Kentucky was by far the best team on the field. Again, they had multiple drops in that game for what could have been even bigger plays, big touchdowns. See, I think that is it MacGyver? Is that how you say it?
I think it's MacGyver. Yeah. Not like MacGyver, the gadget guy, but
MacGyver. We are 100% talking about MacGyver. And that's exactly what he did. He was out there with bubble gum, duct tape, and chopsticks. There we go. I couldn't think of the word chopsticks. I was just going to say tweezers. Making it happen. He is going to find a way to win you a fantasy championship this year with nothing but bubblegum, and I was going to use the Duke Nukem. You know who Duke Nukem is?
Yeah, video game guy, right?
Okay, yeah, I was going to use this. I was going to use this saying, but I know we're not big about language, so I won't say this whole thing.
I don't know what his saying is, but if you had to think about it, I would prefer you not to say it on this.
Something to the effect of I'm only good at 2 things, and that's chewing bubblegum and kicking you know what, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
Oh, that's him. Okay, I've heard the same.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
It was a little before my time. As was MacGyver. but I mean, I know what it is, and I know McGruber. So
Mullets are coming back. McGruber is,
as a huge Lonely Island fan, I am very familiar with McGruber. So
yeah.
Yes. And then Colin said is McIver and his leading receiver Henry. What's the first name?
Matthew, right? Isn't it Matthew?
Yeah, it's Matthew Henry. Thank you. Yeah. I don't know how could I not get that, but I'm glad that you did.
Wait, was Henry that? I don't remember him being that good in the game. Am I wrong?
12 targets, 7 catches, 140
yards.
Yeah.
I'm thinking something. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, he was good.
Yeah. He was definitely the guy that he was looking at the most there. So
I do have a lot of McIver though. A lot.
I only have one McIver. I only have one Henry. So
I don't have any Henry. I think I have a lot of McIver, no Henry. Maybe I'll try and make some trades
for Henry. I think that both those guys are going to be expensive. I think that's going to be the tough part.
I like to live in a
if I had Maverick McIver and somebody tried to buy him from me this week, I think right off the bat I'd be like at least a second or a third round supplemental pick,
I'll throw you a third right now.
Would be the.
I'll throw you a third right now for Henry.
That's why I think I'd probably say second.
That's fine. I'll throw you a fourth. You want to settle on a third now?
Okay, Colin. This is not how you negotiate. All right.
Fine, I'll throw you first. All right. Is that what you want? Throw you first.
I'll settle for the second. I don't want to. I want to maintain a positive trading relationship.
See, Mike Valerie, that's how you trade. Sorry, that's inside joke. Inside joke. Love you, Mike.
We each picked 5 players that we're most excited to watch this season. We have some overlap. We didn't look at our lists together until right before the show here. So let's talk about the guys that we both are excited about first. And then we can talk about some of the unique names on each of our lists. The first one's Damon Williams. I had him as my top name. I don't know if you put yours in order, but he was number 3 on your list. Okay. So he was somewhere on both of our lists.
Yeah, I just. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I was gonna say, just stepping in at Washington this year, we got enough of a glimpse of him last year, I think, to kind of make us even more excited for this year because we think we know what can be. We already really liked him coming out of high school. We think with Jed Fish and stuff there that he's a guy that can kind of get the most out of these from like a size, whatever physical profile perspective, can get the most out of kind of an imperfect type player. So, and they've got pretty good stuff going on around him. So I think, I'm really excited for Damon Williams. Yeah. I mean, what are your expectations for him this year and all that kind of stuff?
Man, I think he's going to be amazing. I remember we talked about this. It was probably 3 or 4 episodes ago now. We did we kind of picked like what we thought teams were going to be, and Washington was my sleeper team of being like, hey, this is a team I think could not win the Big Ten, but like possibly sneak into the playoffs. Is one of those kind of teams that's on the fringe there in the Big Ten. In my opinion, they have a very easy schedule outside of, they've got Ohio State, that team up north, and Oregon on their schedule, which I'd imagine all 3 are probably losses, but they beat that team up north last year. Granted, they're bringing in Bryce Underwood, but again, I mean, Damon Williams in that game was running through those Michigan kept trying to say, whatever, we'll just stick with Michigan. The Michigan defenders are like making them look silly, and that was his first time starting. Those were just the Jed Fish, like schemed plays that he had for them. You mentioned they've got a lot of weapons around him. I do like that wide receiver core as well for them. I mean, obviously, specifically Denzel Boston and what he is. I think that he has a chance to be like what Noah Fafita was a couple years ago. When it was him and Ted that first year, or I think it was that second year technically in the Jed Fish offense, where like they both blew up and had that really great season. Because I also think Damon Williams is just an overall better player than Noah Fafita. I think he's a better rusher. I think he's got better arm talent. So like, I think that the as Michael Jordan would say, the ceiling is the roof for this team. Like, I legitimately think they will be in the playoff race again. Very easy schedule for them this year. And I would not be surprised if they only lose to 2 of those 3 teams. And I'm not even just saying it's Michigan that they would beat. I think they could beat Ohio State. Ohio State's offense is not rolling on all cylinders like it was last year. Again, I've said before, I think that defense takes a step back. Damon Williams is that kind of quarterback we've seen Ohio State defenses in the past struggle with. So I think that he's in for a really big year. I'm really excited to watch him. Like I said, we've loved the kid since, we watched him. I think we had him higher than the services. He's been one of my favorite players. I cannot wait. I think he's an electric player. He's going to be who am I thinking of? come on now. Who really kind of shot up here recently? Oh, Lenore Sellers. Don't think he's going to be like that kind of hype, but like I think he's a player that because of like the college football video games and how college football is becoming more and more national, that he's going to be a guy who kind of blows up because of I think just how fun and electric he can be on the football field.
So here, I want to ask you, I think the parallels, he's a better runner than Noah Fifita, but I think just because of the offenses and what they are and everything, I think we can we can kind of draw some parallels here. So Matt, 2023 Noah Fifita was his best season. Over under 71.9% completion percentage. That's what Noah Fifita had that year.
See, I'm trying to remember what Noah was in high school. So if I'm remembering correctly with DeMond, the one thing I did not like about him was his accuracy. I don't remember him being very good there. I think it was everywhere else, but I will say just under. 71's pretty impressive.
That's higher than I would have guessed. 50. I would have been because he just was such like an effort.
Well, that's the thing I was supposed to say. I mean, when you have Tet Aroa down, you can throw it in the area code, and Tet was going to come down with it. So, like, I think Denzel Boston is not that. So, I think that, like, I'll go a little bit under. I think he'll probably come in like the 67 range.
2,871 passing yards over.
Over. I think DeMond goes over 3K this year.
I think he'll flirt with 3,000. I'm not as sure about the 3K as you are, but
all in.
I think that's possible. 25 passing touchdowns.
I think that's pretty close to where he'll be because I think Jedd Fisch still runs the ball a decent amount, and they have two very good running backs there. So I would say probably close to, if like a push, I would say on 25.
Okay. And then how many rush yards? Because Fifita isn't really a runner. He ran for 80 yards that game, but
so here's the thing, like, is electric as a runner as he is, he's not, like I was saying earlier, he's not Lenore Sellers. So I don't think he's going to maybe right around 500, I think is fair for him. Maybe a little bit less. I think he can get more than like that 300 mark, but I don't know it's going to be much more than that. So I'll get 380-ish, like near 400.
I would set a line right around 350 probably.
Okay.
So if I had to. So yeah, I think if he goes over that, that would be a good season for him.
Yeah.
The other guy that I think we had the exact same as Wayshawn Parker, the running back who transferred from Washington State to Utah this year. It depending on which quote you believe from the coaching staff there, he's either going to run the ball 1,000 times this year or it's a hard committee. I tend to lean toward the first statement and not the second, but who knows? I think Parker, it's going to be interesting to watch him. I mean, it's a very different offense than what he was operating in last year. I think that's the most exciting part to me personally.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but I think that Utah is going to be such a good team. And I think having a guy like Devin Dampier back there who can also run the ball, like we've kind of seen that at times, those quarterbacks that can run the ball will help open up things. I don't believe they actually played on the same team, but I always think that they did. They did play on the same team. Eli Sanders played on the same team as Devin Dampier, right? Mm-hmm. If I'm remembering correctly, Eli Sanders caught a decent amount of passes too. Like Dampier was not afraid to check it down to him. Obviously, as you mentioned, different system for Waymon, but same coaching staff that was with Devin Dampier going over this. So like, I think they're not going to be afraid to check the ball down to him as well. And we do know, like overall, again, I think that why is his name jumped out of my head at the moment? Utah's head coach.
Kyle Whittingham.
Kyle Whittingham. Like we've seen everybody kind of gives him like, I think it's just because he is very old looking, obviously, but like, I feel like he's adapted his offenses for the most part, like from at least for as long as I can remember watching him. So like, I do think that they will allow this to be a little bit more of a wide open offense. But I do think that at times they will still want to play really good defense and run the ball a lot, which I think is going to help out Waymon. And if I'm remembering correctly, I don't think Utah has a very tough schedule either. So, yeah, I think he's a guy who could be really, really good this year at the running back position.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. It's funny because, like, I feel like I remember him catching more passes than he actually caught last year. He only caught 11 passes, and he did run the ball. But like you said, they were a pass-first team. It's a much different offensive system overall. So I do think it's going to be interesting to watch him adapt to it. I think he can. I think he's in for a really nice year. Before Quentin Joyner went down, Joyner and Parker were kind of two guys that I was trying to scoop up places before the season kicked off. Because I think once the season had kicked off for both of them, they're going to be, virtually impossible to go get. So, yeah, they're for Parker. Matt, give me a name from your list that I didn't have.
Yeah, so one of the top names on my list is, I want to see Bryce Underwood. I believe he was officially announced a couple days ago as the actual starter for Michigan, which y'all kind of expected anyways. Mikey Keene had missed most of the spring or the fall, if I'm remembering correctly, with an injury. So, we all kind of knew it was going to be Underwood. But look, we've been doing the freshman guide for 4 years now, only 3 years of actually grading the players in the format that we have been, which again, I think we've been very successful with that. Bryce Underwood, I know was mine, if I'm remembering correctly, yours as well, was my highest graded quarterback I've had in including that year, the 4 years. He would be higher than anyone I had before that as well. I get that Michigan is not looks like they could be possibly almost a dumpster fire on offense with no real wide receiver weapons and interesting offensive line. I think their running backs are going to be fine. I really think Justice Haynes could have a really good season this year. But they brought in, Chip stuck in my head, but I know that's not his name. They brought in the guy he was at North Carolina at one point, really good, Chip Lindsey, right? Yeah. I'm not misremembering that. Okay, that's why Chip was stuck in my head. Chip Lindsey, who's had very fun and interesting offenses. If Sharon Moore lets Lindsey just run his offense, again, I think Bryce Underwood could be really good. And I think that we were hyping up, Dylan Raiola and DJ Lagway last year. And again, I thought Raiola had some very good games early on in the year, kind of struggled in the middle part, hit that, freshman slump and whatnot. But I think Underwood has a chance to be really, really good. I think he's a very dynamic player. So yeah, as much as I don't ever want to watch Michigan, I will be tuning in to watch Bryce Underwood because I think he's just going to be one of the more fun players to watch this year.
Yeah, my big worry is they just the environment is not conducive to
that's fair.
What you were kind of talking about there to really getting the most out of him.
Well, what's interesting about that? What is Sharon Moore suspended for 2 games this year or 3?
It's 2 this year, right?
2 and then 1 next year. So I think there's at least a possibility that if Chip Lindsey's just able to do whatever he wants in those 2 games, Bryce Underwood's going to look absolutely amazing. And then we're going to go back to handing the ball off 30 times in 10 passes.
They'll never let him do that. They'll have Sharon Moore in his ear from outside the stadium. And he's going to be like, Chip, look down. And there's just going to be a red dot in his shirt. And he's going to be like, if you
that's probably fair, right?
3 times in a row, my sniper kills you. I think that's what we're going to be talking about here.
That might be fair. The only reason I said that is because it reminds me of the time that Ryan Day, I believe it was actually because of COVID, missed a game, and all of a sudden Justin Fields ran the ball 20 times in that game and looked absolutely amazing. Then Ryan Day came back and was like, never again. And then we saw Justin Fields, I think, run the ball 20 times the rest of the season. So,
yeah.
That's what I was hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, wishful thinking. I hope so.
Yeah.
How about the Clemson receivers? I think the Clemson receivers are, and I like all of them: Antonio Williams, Bryant Wesco, and TJ Moore. But really, specifically Wesco and Moore going into their second year here. I think we really liked both Moore and Wesco last year. They're both top 7 receivers, I think, for us in the class. And they outperformed even, I think, what I thought they would do last year, statistically. They played like I thought they could, but I didn't know that. How good the passing offense would be, and it really kind of took that big next step that we didn't think was going to happen. So now I'm interested this year. They've had a whole year there. They're more acclimated and everything. They're guaranteed starters going into week 1. They're not fighting for jobs at this point. I'm interested to see just how good both of them can be, and I think they're both going to be awesome. We've talked about it. I've said I think Cade Klubnik, is just the easy preseason choice for the Heisman because of how good these wide receivers are. It is an Ohio State level wide receiver room in terms of the really good ones we've had lately. And obviously you don't want to hype because these guys go to college or go to the NFL and then they're good there, and all of a sudden it kind of elevates you can't sit there and go well, I think this room could be as good as the Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, whatever room at LSU, and maybe not quite that level, but I think also our opinion of them is boosted because of how good they've been in the NFL. But I do think it can be a really awesome wide receiver room that we're talking about is kind of an epic legendary receiving room here in a couple of years. I think all those guys. I've seen some Antonio Williams first round hype. I don't think he's going to get there as much as I would like it to happen, although it is a weak receiver class, so maybe it does. But I do think they're legitimate, like 3 potentially first round wide receivers in that group.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's an incredible group. I was talking about this with Eric on America's Game podcast for the South Harmon Network about how we have like 3 of their wide receivers ranked so highly. It's just like there's almost like no chance for Cade Klubnik to fail, which I agree. And I was actually going to say, I mean, you mentioned the wide receiver room being like Ohio State's. I mean, you could just say that whole team is very much like Ohio State with the players they brought back. I mean, they have a very average to subpar quarterback with decent rushing skills that can make something happen, and then a good offensive line with incredible weapons around him. So you could legitimately be, and a very good defense this year. Like, I think we could realistically be looking at Clemson doing kind of what Ohio State did last year. And I think the only difference is what Klubnik's probably a tad bit of a better rusher than Howard was last year, but I don't think arm talent wise that's much different. Yeah,
I don't know that he's a better runner than. I mean, Howard was fairly prolific.
I mean, I've never seen Cade Klubnik trip on himself and fall down. So, but they still won a natty. You got me, Mike. You got me. You get to hold that over me forever. Your boy.
Yeah. Who else? I mean, that's good.
Haas Haney.
One more topic still. So after this.
White Lightning, Haas Haney. I look, I know I feel like we've I don't know. I can't remember. Oh, I think it was Felix who tweeted out. He's like the fastest white guy I've ever seen or something like that on X earlier today. Look, I've been saying it all summer. I thought he was going to start. I know that supposedly it was a battle between him and Zane Flores. I don't think Zane Flores is anything special. I just want you to listen to this real quick. 139, 101, 146, and 107. Those were the rushing attempts for one Spencer Sanders when he was at Oklahoma State. Mike Gundy is not afraid to let his quarterbacks run. Again, I get it. Haas Haney's on the smaller side of things. I think Ari Wasserman tweeted this out earlier too. Like he remembered watching him at the Elite 11 finals a couple years ago and was like, if this guy was just a couple inches taller, he'd been a 5-star and which I think we loved him. Like again, Haas Haney was a guy we were very high on even when he was committed to TCU. Or like, it kind of sucks that he's going to be stuck behind Josh Hoover, but he's a player that we really love. Same thing with Adam Scoble, who's there now actually. But we thought Haas Haney was going to be a very, very good player. I remember I did a video about him on the transfer to Oklahoma State. I thought it was going to be a great move for them. I think that he has a chance to be absolutely a fantastic player. And look, I'm not the biggest fan of Mike Gundy. I think he's a little bit overrated as a head coach, but for the most part in his career, he's at Oklahoma State looking very good, and he allows his kind of quarterbacks to do stuff like that. I think Oklahoma State might be a very fun team to watch this year, and specifically because of how much fun Haas Haney is going to be to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I think I get like almost same but different with Bryce Underwood is that Oklahoma State could just be a dumpster fire. I'm not saying Michigan's going to be a dumpster fire, but it's like the circumstances maybe aren't as conducive, but for a different reason. Yeah. Like it's just there are a couple wide receivers that are interesting. They have Jalen Lloyd there, who we kind of like in Nebraska, but like again, like is he a guy that can sustain a high volume of targets and stay efficient and consistently win, especially deep? That's kind of what he's known as. Can he do anything else? It's just a lot of guys that are kind of been specialists or one note guys, and what can they do? And they always talk about Oklahoma State when it's no one expects anything from them years when they go crazy. So at like the risk of burying Oklahoma State early and looking like a fool, that is the big concern with me for Haney. I actually traded for Haas Haney in the league today.
I just held on to my shares. I
went to go buy. I pulled them up on like my roster to whatever list, and I was like, okay, like which of these owners do I think I can negotiate with in any of my leagues? I saw you had him in 2 of them, and I was like, well, not going to get him in those ones, and I know Matt likes him too much, so I traded Jalen McGill, the true freshman running back.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I thought it was a good trade.
Yeah, it's potential I lose it for sure, but I only had one Haney before that, and I thought, I have a lot of McGill. I have like 70% McGill, so. Figured might as well go for it.
Dennis says real quick he's nervous that they might lose Bryce Underwood after a crap year at Michigan and go back to a stretch of bad QBs. I don't think Underwood's going anywhere. He's getting paid too much money. Technically, it's the school he always wanted to go play for. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think that he'll just stay the 3 years. personally. As much as I don't want to see that, I'd rather them play Jaden Davis, though they still beat us with Jaden Davis. But I'd rather them play guys like that than Bryce Underwood.
Other names on our list here. You said Haney. I have the Texas Tech running backs. We talked a little about last week, so I don't need to go too far into it. But I legitimately thought that Texas Tech had one of the better backfields in the country overall. I think there's a couple things that you would point to that you would probably prefer going into the year. Miami's deep. Penn State's got a two-headed attack there. Notre Dame's got some guys. Texas is pretty full, but like Texas Tech was a really well-rounded running back room, and that obviously losing a guy like Joyner hurts. But with Jacoby Williams and Cameron Dickey behind him, I still think they're going to be pretty decent, at least running the ball this year. I think both those guys can kind of fill in for what Joyner was gonna offer them. So I'm excited to watch those two and see what they look like, and if one of them take the job. I'm just interested to see how they kind of develop over the course of this year.
Yeah, I don't think there's much to add there. I agree with you. We kind of talked about that last week or 2 weeks ago when unfortunately the injury happened, and we kind of said we actually talked about Joyner possibly transferring out Alton McCaskill because of that. Yeah.
What happens?
So, It also does kind of suck when you say that, just the fact, like, if he would have stayed healthy, like that three-headed backfield, even if, say, Morton got hurt, I think Texas Tech could have been still a very scary team because they could have just leaned on all three of those running backs. So it would have been a lot of fun. They still got two really good ones.
Yeah. Last name
my last one's Dante Moore. Again, I think a lot of that's just Will Stein, what we've seen him do with quarterbacks the past couple of years. Obviously, Dante Moore was a very highly rated quarterback for us services as well. He was my quarterback too in that class. I had him graded just slightly ahead of Arch Manning, behind Malachi Nelson. But I also think, and I remember Colin mentioned this, and I'm a little bit higher on this number than Colin was, and I don't want to slight Colin here, but I think he said it was more of like a 7% chance that Austin Novosad plays. But like, I do think if Dante Moore struggles in any kind of way early, they might give Novosad a shot. So that leaks a little bit into why I want to watch Dante Moore play, because again, we're being honest, the last time we saw him on the field, it was not great. Granted, I think that was more the offense and Chip Kelly than anything else. And Will Stein, I think, is a genius when it comes to this, kind of underrated. But Dante Moore is a player that I'm really excited to watch, because, look, I think Oregon's going to be good. I have a lot of question marks about their roster. And I love Dan Lanning. I don't want to see Oregon struggle, but there's definitely some spots that I can see Oregon faltering a little bit, because they're not quite as strong as they have been the past couple of years.
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible. It is going to be fun to watch him this year. My last name is Jaron Hamilton. I think it's probably not a name that people were expecting me to put on this list tonight, but we've talked about this a couple times this offseason, where Arizona State last year kind of allowed Sam Leavitt to be a passenger through large portions of games until they really needed him. And obviously he grew into that role and then some. But they could, at times, if they really needed to, lean into Scadaboo in the running game last year. And even when they're, even basically the run game through the air with, the short dump offs and stuff, the Scadaboo caught a ton of passes. This year, losing Scadaboo, I think Kyson Brown's okay. Kanye Udo's, is fine. Like, they've got some backs there, but there's no Scadaboo guy that they can kind of lean on. At least it doesn't seem like it. And so I do think that this is more of a, okay, this is your team now, Sam. Take us to the promised land. And part of that's going to be, they didn't really have another wide receiver after Tyson last year. Like, sure, guys could fill in here or there and had some spots where they came up big, but like they didn't have a consistent two that was really good that could give defenses fits. I think all the reports out of camp are that Jaron Hamilton's been really good. He's a transfer in from Alabama a couple years ago, and we really liked him, or at least I know I did as a recruit going into Alabama. Didn't really work out there for him. But like, if it's true that he has looked really good for them and be a consistent wide receiver two for them, I do think that team can make up for the Scadaboo stuff, can kind of flip from more of, a balanced attack, we'll say, to more pass heavy, unleash Sam Leavitt, kind of show what he can do. And just like, make Arizona State a really intriguing team again. So that I'm watching that, because I think if they have a consistent second guy there, I think they're dangerous again this year.
Oh, I agree. And I love it again, because I think that we could, and I mentioned this again, I talked about that America's Game podcast I did. I mentioned Sam Leavitt as a guy who I think could really surprise and end up being a first-round pick. Because I think we know of Sam Levitt. I think some casuals, or however you want to put it, do know because they watched him in that Texas game. But I don't think people really know him. And I think this could be a massive year for him. And I think what really helps him bringing in like Jaron Hamilton, can't remember who else they brought in the other
Jalen
Fresno
Moss.
guy. Yeah, Moss. They've got a very good wide receiver core that if Tyson goes down, I think Levitt has a lot of weapons he can lean on, which he did not have last year. Once Tyson went down, it was kind of like the island of misfit
Troy
toys.
O'Meara and like it was just not really good players.
They were throwing to people like me out there, and guys, I play soccer, not football, so I did play baseball, but I was using a mitt to catch things. So,
all right, our last topic here for the night, Matt.
Yeah,
I know we each put a couple of games down here, but I want us to each pick one from our list. Our top matchups this week that we're going to be watching that feature two unranked teams. So obviously no LSU and Clemson, no Bama, Florida State, no Miami, Notre Dame, all of these kind of bigger games this week that are really intriguing. You have to pick one game with two unranked opponents. Who are you picking to watch this week?
Oh, man, I can only pick one. That's not fair. I worked really hard on putting this list together. I'm going to read all the teams, all the ones that I have, but I will only talk about one.
That's your honorable mentions for sure. Yeah.
East Carolina versus NC State. A lot of that was just because of Kattenhauser against a really good defense. Nebraska, Cincinnati, I think has a chance to be a really fun game to watch. Cal versus Oregon State. A lot of that was just because of Jaron Kiave, Sagapuatele, but I want to see what they look like. And then Colorado State, Washington, a lot of that was because of DeMond Williams. I want to see if that kind of gets off to where it goes. The one I will bring up is Utah, UCLA. I am really excited to see what Utah is going to look like. We've I think kind of talked a lot about what Devin Dampier can be. And actually the first time we talked about, we had Mike on the show, actually. It was you, me, and Mike talking about like what he was going to be. We were kind of going over like, could he be this good of a rusher and everything? I mean, again, Utah, I know as a team that you've mentioned is like a team who could surprise in the Big 12. And I think the big thing with them has been that healthy quarterback play. And I think Dampier could be that. I think UCLA could be better than may not have with Nico being there now. Go with Utah, UCLA.
Nebraska, Cincinnati was my honorable mention as well, just because there's a lot of we think we kind of know what these teams are, especially offensively for what we kind of are looking at. But, who's the leading receiver at Cincinnati? Is it Jeff Caldwell? Is it Cyrus Allen? Is it, neither? Is it a mix? How does Brendan Sorsby look? What's the running back split look like? Pryor's been banged up. Is it all Tobby Walker? I mean, Joe Royer, how much of a factor is he at tight end? So on. In Nebraska, I think the same thing. Emmett Johnson finished last year hot at running back. Is it actually that way this year? Or is it more of a committee? Because they've talked about some of these other backs. They're younger, but they, kind of like what they have with them. The receivers, is it Dane Key? Is it Ja'Cory Barney? Is it Isaiah Hunter? Or is it, whoever else? Carter Nelson at tight end? What's going on there? How does Dylan Raiola look in kind of his second year opener? Does he look like he's gotten better? Is he kind of the same old Raiola, so on and so forth? I think that matchup is really intriguing, but just in terms of like pure enjoyment and watching, I do think Auburn Baylor is going to be a really fun game, because I do think this game has some sort of like outside playoff angle to it already.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially for Auburn, I think Auburn probably has to go perfect in the non-con because of the SEC. They're going to drop a game or two there. And I've seen some people saying, they like 9 or 10 in Auburn this year. I'm not there, but if that's your prediction, then obviously this is a game that they really have to win, with a lot of new pieces and moving parts offensively, especially a quarterback. What does that look like? And then for Baylor, they bring back kind of their big three. Are they going to keep clicking this year? We've seen Baylor finish off the pot and come out the next year, and you're like, this is the same team I watched last year. These are all the same dudes. Bryson Washington and Sawyer Robertson and Josh Cameron and those guys. So I think Auburn Baylor gets kind of my sign of approval as the best, or my most anticipated non-ranked matchup. And actually, neither of us just talked TCU or UNC with Bill Belichick's first game, which I think is interesting. And I will be watching that, but that's Monday, I think. I think it's on Labor Day. So
yeah, it's the Monday night game. I mean, it's interesting to me more because of TCU, though. Like, I don't know that Gio Lopez, lights a fire in my loins the way some other people do, or like probably
some other people.
Some other teams do. I'm getting steamy in here now. All of a sudden, I'm mentioning fire under my loins. And, the glasses are getting steamed up. Josh Hoover, baby. But see, I do think it could be a fun game. But I mean, again, I think all the ones that I know, like I can see the show sheet, like the teams that you had, the games that you had on there, the games that I had. Like I'm just more excited about those than that game specifically.
Yeah, me too. But I think all those storylines are worth noting. So,
yeah.
And
Plus,
I think
what's her name going to be on the sideline? Are we still taking bets on that?
Well, we didn't talk about it all. Actually, we didn't talk about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift.
Dear God, thanks, guys. Right. Kirk, we can't
That's
talk to you.
That's gonna do it for tonight's show. Apologies to Kirk Herbstreit. We ran out of time, but we will get him rescheduled. We really do promise. Again, just check out everything at campuscan.com, guys. As the season's rolling around, I guarantee there's something there that you're going to enjoy. Even if you don't want to sign up for a membership, pretty much all of our articles are free. You can read our articles, our takes on a lot of this stuff. I think it's good stuff.
I was going to say, speaking of Kirk,
yeah,
I might actually cry on Saturday when I see the Lee Corso stuff. I've seen parts of it.
So I was going to actually talk to you about this because I want to bring back parting shots for next week. I was going to talk to you about this. And I have a one started on Corso.
Oh boy, I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing, but I'm excited.
Oh no, it's not a bad thing. It's not. I'm not gonna bury the guy.
Sometimes I'm not
kick him on his way out.
But
I mean, it's long overdue. We don't need to we don't need to rehash that argument that this looks like they just wheeled the guy out there and propped him up for the whatever. So. We'll discuss that after the show here, man.
Parting shots next week. Yeah. I'm all for it.
I love parting shots. That's like one of my favorite things ever. But I used to really like the Sports Reporters. Do you remember that show?
I do. Not one that I was super entertained by, but I do remember it. Yes.
It was always on Sunday mornings before we left for church. It was like the last show that was on, and I could catch it right before we left. I've always been like a big, sportsy, like without like even when I was a little kid, I liked kind of like the intellectual side of sports journalism, like those guys, because it's not hot takey, it's not Stephen A. Smith, it's not Shannon Sharp, it's like guys that are actually sitting there that cover the sport that are like somewhat legendary writers, and I always enjoyed like it was a different show. So I've always liked that. But we'll get Kirk rescheduled. Maybe we'll get the Sports Reporters on here. I'll reach out. I'll have my people talk to their people. We'll see what we can do. Enjoy the opening week of college football, everybody. We've waited a long time. Enjoy it. Looking forward to talking to it this weekend. The tailgate
Saturday. I was about to say, make sure you
post game show as well. Matt and I will be there. What's that show called that we do?
Used to be Coast to Coast. Now I think we just do C2. Didn't we just name it C2C? Wasn't it just C2C Live before this became C2C Live?
We have like a video thingy for it, don't we? Like a little sting.
That was Coast to Coast, but we got rid of Coast to
Coast. Watch this. Ready for the live
it's people. College Fantasy Tonight.
It's probably our coolest stinger too. So
it's definitely one of them.
The tailgate one's really good too, though.
I love the tailgate one. Yeah.
But yeah, Matt and I'll be doing that show. So we'll be around a lot. We'll be talking college football, but we'll catch you guys next week. Good night and good luck.